This is Energy Perspectives. Welcome. I am Tony Abolo. On this program, we look at energy matters as it affects us in Nigeria, as well as global energy matters that could impact us, whether it is electrical, it is oil and gas, or renewable energy. And our focus on this edition of the program is on renewable energy. In the last edition, we were looking at the issues of policies and the possibilities of increasing the energy supply in Nigeria through alternative renewable energy sources. And this time we want to deepen that conversation by looking at issues that are technological, implementation, manufacturing, and the possibilities of making it a home, domestic, wider scale affair. And we have our guests on this show. I would like to welcome both of them to the program. The other time we're looking at alternative renewable energies, we were exploring all sorts of possibilities and looking at policy issues and how we can improve on those policies and look at a more friendly approach towards executing how energy can become more available, more widespread. But now a question we ought to be asking is, if we take a model that has a mix, it means we will be looking at how you unbundle the distribution. Because people have said, okay, the electric energy we have, having a national grid is not satisfactory. So if you're going to have a mix, solar, thermal, wind, and so on, should we go into a situation where we have regional arrangements, a regional grid, local grids? Because even a local grid, I'm sure, is also possible. Are those things possible, Michael Odili?
They are quite possible, and as far as the power is generated, there are diverse ways, there are diverse approach we can actually use to make the power available to the end users. Okay, so because starting from mini grid and microgrid systems or decentralized systems, communities actually there are still about 80 million people without access to electricity whatsoever
in Nigeria.
Yeah, so those communities now can actually undertake these decentralized systems, because what we find is in places where there are no access to national grid, they do not necessarily have so much equipment. So what the power they require may just be just basic home appliances. So they don't go on buying things that require power to run where they know it's not existing. So smaller home UPS systems can actually work for this category of people in their cluster. And but then looking at the dark backgrounds of this whole thing, this whole transmission and distribution systems we have in Nigeria, they are organized systems, they are organized communities like the universities, the hospitals, the public offices that are still powered by this national grid, of which having in a knowledge base like a university, like the one I can get from. I could imagine if there is a mini grid system that self-powers the university. That means because these people, these organized clusters, these organized communities, they are actually given a privilege, a priority privilege when it comes to power distribution. Because I remember then in University of Benin, we have more power coming into the school from the national grid more than the neighboring communities. So I could imagine that the University of Benin, as an instance, and other universities and other hospitals actually have their own independent generated power. And that power given to the schools now and given to these communities are given to the neighboring communities. They are going to actually have more power available. Or imagine this power is actually given to people not that do not have access to electricity whatsoever currently in Nigeria. So it's going to go a long way. So it's a mix of the two systems, having smaller decentralized systems, and for these other bigger communities and these public offices, having mini-grid systems that can serve their energy demand. Because most times we find that the energy demands of places like hospitals, school, universities, they are actually heavy. Power demanding. So if this can actually be achieved, although I'm also aware that the NEP is more like an initiative by the federal government. The plan is it's actually carried out by the REA, that's Rural Electrification Agency. They are looking at providing mini grid systems, or more like a private-driven initiative, private sector-driven initiative, providing power to underserved and unreached areas without power, and also building mini or decentralized home UPS systems. But then that is the target. I know they've already rolled it out, but I could also refer to the last one rolled out that was targeted towards universities, of which till date, the last time I checked, and from a report I heard even on Vanguard News, that currently only 2 universities are actually running on those powers currently. So that's the thing, which, like we said in the last time, it's not just about making policies, but making sure that these policies work and it is being monitored till the latter. Because right now the REA, the NEP initiative is a very wonderful initiative, but as far as it works and it's monitored till the latter, it's going to be a serious change.
But this raises a question about efficiency. And again, a bit like you referred to the last time you were on the show, looking at policy, intent, implementation, a wide gap. Because definitely the underserved and the rural areas. And of course, when there is poverty, although we're coming into issues of cost, now you need to monitor how you are serving those rural communities that require energy, and which is the best way even to service them. Do you need solar to get to them? Is that cheaper to deliver to them? Or stepping down from the national grid to get to them? How do we really serve them, and efficiently? At the same time, dealing with the urban and the more industrialized areas. Because, you have to draw a line. There are 3 areas in terms of service.
Well, I will draw copiously from a survey we did in one of the riverine communities in the south of Nigeria, where the tension at that time, we had thought a regional concept would have favored those underserved communities located in those regions. But unfortunately, we saw some of these high tension wires running from cities around these places, like Ughelli, for example, all the way from there into another state, because most of the communities are actually in Bayelsa State, And along the line, you see so much money has been spent by the federal government on drawing power from the national grid to these communities, but those wires and the poles are already on the ground as I'm talking to you right now. So solar technology will very well serve those communities, because solar is something you can configure in such a way that you don't need much wiring to transmit energy to these people. So I will endorse the use of solar to reach these communities, because you can come up with standalone or plug and play devices. What that means is you go into any household, you have a small box. Some people took advantage of that business opportunity some time ago, and it worked. Plug and play, just put it in a house, can power the equipment you have, the basic equipment that can make anybody happy living in the rural area. There are some plug and play microsystems that can play that role, and also affordable. So solar for the regional area will be very good. That's for the underserved communities that can be identified. They're talking about policy actually too. is okay if the desire is to make sure a lot of people have access to electricity, which is a major development indices, as it were. Your intention is to get electricity to them. Then there's a policy that is also protective of some groups within the energy space in the country. I had a major challenge when I was doing some work with an oil company downstream, who has filling stations all over the country, and they decided to go into renewable energy because first it's saving the ozone layer that the whole world is going to. So they took the initiative to do that, and they landed the system in one of their mega stations, in Lagos. The intention of doing it was that they will use part of it for themselves and give part out as part of their corporate social responsibility to the neighborhood. But they said there's a conflicting policy that says that whatever thing they have generated can be used by itself, but cannot be distributed to the communities. You see the mismatch? Yes, So, and that is currently also going on. So the policy should be that, okay, relax it. For even people who want to take it up as a private investment initiative, map out an area and serve these people at affordable rate is the way to go. But rather than saying that for any private business person to do that, it has to meet certain demands that sometimes are prohibitive, for you to be able to attempt to even satisfy them. To me, it's not good for business development and even for the energy sector. So that's got to be addressed. Then, as a policy also, the government should also see it that because of the importance of energy in development of this country, subsidize most of these components, so that at least for those who have genuine interest in investment in this area, in those days used to have what is called tax holidays. For anybody who's able to do that and solve a major national problem, tax holidays, and even give subsidized exchange rate to be able to get these things in, and even free tariff at the borders as you are bringing them in. Again, I also had a very bitter experience in the project I was doing with some Canadians in this country. It was supposed to drive the educational sector. The Canadians came in, housed them at a very exorbitant rate. The intention was to make sure that one of the educational institutions, which have a pilot study in that place, if we are successful with it, then we can now move into other institutions. Quite okay, the equipment came in, but they were stuck at the port because of demand for gratification. That's one. Then secondly, even the risk they were calculating as tax or demurrage, at the port was terrible. Even the institution that had seen it as an opportunity to contribute their quota, because the second phase of the project was to now teach our people, teach our children, the technology that's involved in making energy available everywhere in the country. So all those drains just went down the drain. We stored the panels quite okay, but the batteries couldn't come in because they say some people bring in the batteries for this kind of project, and sometimes they now sell it in the open market. So these are some of the issues that are very conflicting.
Now let's look into the local capacity, technological capacity. If we're going to, whether it is solar or wind, do we have the capacity? Michael Odile, you are into this anyway, in terms of your daily experience and technological hands-on. Do we have the technical capacity, local, to be able to achieve this? Are there inputs locally, and we don't need to really import anything?
Okay, so for now, when you talk about capacity, I would say we have human capacity to a very large extent, like the technological know-how. If you talk about the solar panel, the installations, and the technology itself, okay? So, but then it goes beyond having the capacity, because if the capacity is there, and because if you talk about capacity now, more like biased my conversation towards the technological capacity, because there is also a role for a part where the technological capacity is there but needs to be amplified using funds from the public sector, from other private sector and investment also. So for now, I would say yes, the capacity is there, but when it comes to the rate at which this capacity is converted into the solutions that can drive a major national change, the percentage is actually very low. Because starting from the technologies I and my team have developed so far, starting from wireless energy transmission, because we were still a long time ago, back then from 2015, we actually saw that this is actually a major issue. The issue of transmission, even though we generate up to 13,000, about 13,000 megawatts, and we can only transmit about 4,000. So we looked at alternative means of transmitting this power. And one of them that we came up with was the wireless energy transmission. And we did a prototype, we did a test phase. The project, at the point where we got the prototype, we were able to first transmit over 1 meter and started increasing the range and making sure it's not just, and making sure it's safe, because it's not just achieving the purpose, but then it has to be safe to climate friendly, because we are majorly involved in climate action. So that's why we are actually a clean tech energy company that employs processes of the future to solve the problems of today. So it's worked. We presented it in the presence of so many notable people, so many notable persons, of which some of them they made it, because I remember even when Edo Innovation Hub was launched, the vice president was there. We presented the project. Even during the energy hackathon that was funded by, or more like in a collaboration between Edo State government and Siemens, they were there. We presented the wireless energy transmission. But then for now the capacity is there technologically, but moving it further became the issue. The second thing again is the just add water systems. People complained about the batteries when it comes to the solar energy. Batteries, the storage, not being having the backup timing as an issue, and also the lifespan of the batteries as an issue. So we developed the just add water system. Just add water system is to just remove the battery part of the solar systems. And in fact, because we understand
the technical know-how.
Technical know-how to a very good extent, and we also understand the geographical atmosphere of the country where we live in. Because most the solar panels that we ship in, that we all see around, has been the usual solar panels, works for them both in the Western world and here in Nigeria. And we developed a conformal solar panel. A solar panel that have a different geometric configuration, so that even in small spaces we can have high power output. Because we noticed that the solar panels could be there, but you need to generate enough power to power the facility where is actually the focus, because it goes beyond just getting power, but you need to get enough power. If not, you will also get back to looking for alternative sources to mix, even in homes or industries. So, but then we presented it to, but then this is the thing, these scholarly ideas now, it looks like they are more appreciated by other countries, like the Asian countries, the Western countries, because the major applause and a serious push always happens when we get to be invited by some foreign companies or some foreign venture capitalist groups and so on and so forth. They appreciate it. Even though it's not a do or die affair for their country. Electricity generation is not a problem everywhere in the world. But then they appreciate it so much.
But can I ask you a question? You know, from what you've been saying, I'm sure Abel can weigh in on this. Isn't it a profitable isn't it a profitable venture? I mean, whether it is solar or it is wind-driven, isn't it a viable project ever? You've been in the Arabian countries, and I'm sure you've seen it work.
Exactly. It's a very viable venture to go into, for private investments to go into. But that policy that restricts people to come into the industry until they meet certain conditions, which to me is killing the industry. So the objective you want to achieve now, you've started implementing another policy that is antagonistic, to it. I give you a classic example of another company, who invested in solar for its own consumption, and as well the good way to give to his neighbors. They said, no, you cannot give to another person, use it yourself. Remember some time ago, we got some key investors who were also interested in setting up something like, in Edo State, for example, just do some mapping, of how many households you want to drive by this project, meeting the conditions set by one government commission, So, but I was just trying to study what could be behind this policy. I'm not seeing anything viable to hold on to.
Except for the Nigerian factor, maybe?
I don't know.
So
or maybe they're trying to protect those who have, maybe it's part of the agreement they reached with them, those who bought over the assets of the old
PHCN.
Yeah, PHCN. So maybe there's part of the agreement that says, okay, hold off competition until we're able to have recovered our investments. We don't know. So, but if you want to come into the country as a businessman to invest into electricity, there's a restrictive policy, national policy, that makes it difficult.
And is that restrictive from your own experience, Mike, for ordinary investors in Nigeria? Maybe the banks, some wealthy people.
Okay, so
what has been your experience dealing with them?
Banks, okay.
Yeah. We are
still talking about the policies and regulations now, because
that restrains investors from coming into. So we have a problem, but we can't solve it because of human factor.
Yes.
The Nigerian factor, rather than any other thing that is holding us back. So it's possible to address it.
Okay, so talking about investment and upscaling, I remember in 2017, we requested for a fabrication lab. The fabrication lab is more like the innovation for inventors. When an inventor or a group of inventors have a fabrication lab where they can print, they can simulate, they can get everything they have in mind to work, to actually solve real-time problems. Because even now, in the scientific community in Nigeria that I can talk about, because I'm a part of it, is we now know that it's not just about having scientific viable solutions, but then they have to scale. The only way people can actually feel the impact is when it's solving a real-time problem, or when it moves from just research to becoming products. But then you can't just move from research to product. You have to go through prototype, minimum viable product, before you can now start doing testing, evaluation, and so on and so forth. But talking about the investments from banks, I remember at a point we were asked to go to BOI. And the long list, I remember what somebody said actually when we went for a meeting with Olon. So Olon Energy, which is funded by Shell. So you're like, sometimes they may request for your great-grandmother's teeth. Okay, something that it's what they request for sometimes is just too much. And if you want to leapfrog someone or a group of persons that are doing something that may be mind-blowing or that are mind-blowing, you don't all the time, in all cases, expect them to have everything legal, backing up because the list is quite long. The list is something else, and they have to be certified by different associations and organizations that may not actually understand because it's a new idea. It could be a new idea. It could be a new concept, but the association may already be streamlined to what is usual, to what is known. So because, okay, like there is this quote, if you want to discover new oceans, you have to lose sight of the shore. So that flexibility for things that look impossible, things that are in quotes impossible, the flexibility in the policies, we don't actually find it.
Well, we'll have to leave it at that. We have had interesting conversations, gentlemen, looking at renewable alternative energy sources, and we've been talking about challenges. But I'm sure the next time we'll come on this program, we'd like to look at those things that work and begin to get people to think possibilities, because there are possibilities. There are a few things that are happening. And I have even a statistical data that has come even that emanated from one of our guests on this program, Michael Ojili, who said to me that in Benin City alone, 1,200 solar panels are sold every day. That is a story of possibilities, which means it is possible to get these things done. So that's a good story to tell. I will continue this the next time. I want to thank Abel Ujo, who's a financial and business development consultant and who's also into energy. Never mind whether it's by association or however you come by it. We want to thank you for coming on the show. And I'd like to thank Michael Authority Odili, who himself is into tech, artificial intelligence, solar, all that is about alternative energy. He's into it, and he's a whiz kid, and he's here. We're proud to have him. He works for New Digit, and we'd like to thank you for coming on the show. We hope you've been enlightened, and this has been Energy Perspectives. I am Tony Abolo. I do hope and wish you an energy-filled day.